You are with the University of Karate, and we've joined together with Sensei Mike Biddle for another conversation concerning the principles, history, and some of the current trains of thought that are shaping and guiding the martial arts. Today, our topic is what is the best system or style for self defense? Is it Uechi-ryu, Shotokan, Tai Chi? There's so many different styles out there. What is the best style for self defense? Now, this may take or go in the direction you may not think, but we're going to ask Sensei Biddle that as we start this conversation and follow through on some thoughts that may enlighten you. Sensei Biddle, what are your thoughts on the best style for martial arts?
That's always a proverbial question, isn't it? What is the best style? Well, my answer to that is all of them and none of them. Simply put, you can't simulate a street fight. There's no way you can do that. There's nothing that can prepare you for a real street fight. And I know the arguments are, well, BJJ is better because everybody ends up on the ground, but do they? My brother was a fighter, a brawler, a street fighter, and he was hundreds of fights. I mean, literally hundreds of fights. I know because I waited up many nights for him to get home with my dad. And he said to me, I asked him about it one time, and he says, oh my God, you never want to be on the ground because if you're on the ground, you're getting kicked in the head or you're going to get stomped on. Because let's be realistic. Nobody's street fighting anymore. We're not out there. You can't get in a fight. When I was a kid, we used to get in fights all the time. That was a thing, you know. We'd get off the bus and someone was annoying you and you beat their ass. You don't do that now. You go to jail. You can't get in there's no such thing as a friendly fight because it got out of hand. People got in too many fights, school fights. We had school fights every day at recess, but that doesn't happen now because what happens? Because now you've got other things that happen. You get knives, get pulled, you got terrorists, and you got things, and you get in a fight in school, and the whole CPS is involved, and so we're not fighting anymore. But let me swing back to that. So the system for self-defense, it's none of them because you can't simulate it. As Mike Tyson famously said, everything's fine until you get hit in the mouth. If you've never been hit in the face with a fist or a punch or whatever, then you don't know what you're doing. Granted, certain situations lend themselves to certain things. Ground fighting is good. I learned some ground fighting before BJJ was around because I was interested in what happens. My thing was if I was this big, strong karateka that goes to the ground, what am I going to do? So I took some judo and I practiced. We used to do classes and things, so we learned some things. It was a tool in the toolbox. But in a self-defense situation, you can't simulate it. You just simply can't. What you can only do, and this is whatever style you have, and I'm not going to tell you to do any style for self-defense is better than another because, like I said, all or none. All you can do is train yourself to the best that you can, and if you find yourself in that situation, hope that you have the tools necessary to do it. Now, when you see guys I've seen them on the podcast, Joe Rogan and Jocko Willink. Jocko Willink is a SEAL Team 6 guy. He's a monster of a human being. And he says, well, you gotta do a BJJ. Well, that guy could beat you with anything. And beat you with everything. There's nothing you could do with a human being like that. A Navy SEAL trained to the highest level of skill at killing somebody, you're not gonna fight that person. And then I also hear the expression of, and here's the deal. Most people you run against aren't martial artists. So do you need to train against the high level? I've heard Joe Rogan say, well, you should train, maybe not Joe Rogan, but I've heard somebody say it. You got to train to the highest level. Why? I've done the math. I actually have a note on it. How many black belts exist in the country? How many people practice martial arts? What are the odds that you're going to run into a highly skilled martial artist? It's almost zero. It's not happening. Well, what about in the hood and you're going to get someone in the wrong part of the neighborhood, whatever segment that is, rednecks or blacks or whatever neighborhood, Chinese, Oriental, and you're going to get beat up? Well, you're in trouble. Don't be there. Because you can't control that situation. There's no art that's going to control that situation. If you're on the ground, if I had 3 or 4 guys and we were going to get in a fight and the guy got on the ground to pull guard, I'd send one in to do it and the other 2 to stomp him on the head. Because I'm trying to do bodily harm at that point. So it's not going to work. One-on-one to control a situation, like there's that one story where there's a guy threatening people on the subway and the BJJ guy subdued them and held them till the cops came. Perfect. Perfect. That worked. But what if that guy had a buddy? It isn't working. But it's also not going to work if you're a karate stylist and you're occupied with one guy and the other guy sneaks up and bashes you over the head with a bottle. There's a guy, he is a former CIA operative, he's on YouTube, and he says, there's countries you shouldn't be in. It's not safe. There's places that you don't put yourself in. If your idea of learning a style is to kick someone's ass, then by all means go do that, and then go to the bar and get into a bar fight and get a bottle busted over your head, or 3 guys kicking you and stomp on you on the head or whatever, and you end up in the hospital. There's the fruit of your reward. Other than that, the self-defense aspect it's a simulation. All the things we're doing are simulations. I had an opportunity. So let's talk about the definition of self-defense. It's not fighting. What's the best way of self-defending yourself? Not fighting. So if there's any way to avoid a fight, then don't. Get out of it. Don't fight. Avoid it. That's self-defense. That's the ultimate form of self-defense, is not getting into a fight. So don't put yourself in positions, and I get it. There's times where you get in certain circumstances. I've had a couple in my life. I was with a girlfriend once, and we were at a bowling alley, and there's 4 or 5 guys circled around us. And come on, let's give me some money or something. And I put my bowling ball down, and I put my girlfriend behind me, and I said, who dies first? But here's the thing, I meant that. Because the first guy coming at me, I was going to kill. Now, would I have survived the confrontation? Probably not. I would have killed one of them. The other 3 or 4 would have got to me. Maybe. Don't know. I didn't have to. So what happened? Scared the shit out of them. They're like, no. Oh, dude, no. We're just kidding around. And they walked off. That worked. Will it work every time? Probably not. So I don't know. I mean, you can prepare yourself. You can train yourself. And you can hope it holds up. But the idea that we're practicing for self-defense is an illusion. We don't live, and I know John wants to segue on something here, so I'm going to bring the segue in. We don't live in a society where that is a daily part of our lives. There are people that do, certain neighborhoods, the Bronx, certain areas that are bad, and these kids, they learn to fight. But they don't have time for martial arts. They're learning just survival. They're shooting, stabbing, and clubbing. That's their self-defense. It's better than mine in their situation. We don't live in a society. It's frowned upon. You don't have fights anymore. So the society has evolved. And that's a segue. John, go ahead and bring your...
Yeah, that's what... Again, this is going in a direction that whoever clicked on this, you might think it's clickbait, but these are some things you need to think about, because there's some common sense when you talk about what's the best style. Because everyone is so polarized and tribal when it comes to their style being better than this style being better than that style being better, when they don't really have some common sense on the fact that martial arts and the martial arts is a commodity of diminishing returns in this time we're living in. We're not living in the 70s or the 1950s or the 1800s or any time in the past where martial arts were purer, more disciplined, more complete. Even if you look at, as we segue here, in Japan, when the samurai era came to an end and they outlawed both the samurai class and the use or wearing of the sword in public, that radically changed society. And as a result, the training and skill and use of the sword diminish with it.
Yeah, they wouldn't. They would at that time of the samurai. They thought you're crazy not to carry a sword. Now you're crazy if you have one.
Yeah, if you walk down the street with a sword, see how quickly they call the nut house on you, or the police, or a little bit of both. If you survive, getting shot. There, the point I'm making is when we talk about weapons training, and there's weapons training in some martial arts, but you're in a society where we don't carry weapons openly legally anymore. You can carry a gun in some places, usually concealed carry, but if you carry an open weapon, beside maybe a knife in some places that's usually for hunting, you're going to be stopped by the police or arrested. It's not something that is usual and seen. And because of that, it's something that is dying out, or people don't really see it as a need. We're in a culture where people are interested in comfort, and martial arts that hurt or are uncomfortable are starting to become less and less seen. Let's talk about a little bit about how society is changing and the martial arts with it, and what we know as the martial arts right now, especially if you're 30 and above, or what you believe was martial arts, may not be here in another 20, 30 years.
Yeah, it has to evolve. And here's a good example of how the evolution is. In the days where we were all physically active, we were farming or we were building and we were constructing, we didn't think about exercise. I mean, my grandparents didn't go to the gym. There was no such thing. Then society changed. We started becoming more technical and not doing as much of that stuff, more sedentary, more office jobs. And then people started getting overweight and unhealthy. So the fitness craze started. And then the weightlifting in the gym started opening, and everybody's exercising because it's a replacement for something. It's a replacement for the natural construction work and the muscle building and the exercise, farming, running, all these things that we did, our ancestors did, we don't do anymore. Now we have computers and tables and chairs. Chairs are probably the worst thing for society that were ever invented because they mess with our back, they mess with our posture.
Washing machines, everything.
Yeah, so it's all evolution of a species. And martial arts is the same way. When the martial arts was developed, you needed to know how to kill. Like in the samurai, tell the samurai don't have to practice with a sword, he'd chop your head off just for saying it. But now you can't walk around with an open carry with a samurai sword over your shoulder or a big staff with a spear or something. So martial arts is evolving, it's changing. So I think if we try to focus so hard on self-defense and killing, it's a losing battle. You're going away. You are going away. And I say this to all the schools out there that keep preaching, well, this punch will kill. Or we're defending ourselves. We're learning to defend ourselves. No, you're not. Because society has evolved. It's changing. It's not going to stay there. It is going away. So what has to happen to martial arts? Well, let's take it around in 360. I think you develop the art of the style. See, the evolution in the martial arts, oh boy. So originally,
we can break this into 2 or 3 sessions if you want to.
The art of the Shaolin wasn't developed to fight. It was developed to strengthen the body so that the monks could pray and fast, with the side benefit of being able to defend themselves because they lived in a culture where there were bandits. You go walking down the street and you could get robbed and all that. So, but the art is not a self-defense. It wasn't built around self. How can I say this? Self-defense was part of the art, but the art was not built around self-defense. Self-defense, there was the art, and self-defense was a byproduct of it, is a benefit of it. So, in our society, as we evolve in time, and the laws are not going to allow it, we're not going to return to the wild, wild west. We're not. Now, I'm not trying to say don't do it for self-defense reasons, because I think there's nothing wrong with training to learn to defend yourself. Because it could happen. There could be the need. But to make that the emphasis of what we're attempting to do. Like occasionally the comments on some of our videos are, well, that won't work for self-defense. This is better than that. Sure, whatever. I'm not doing it because I want to beat somebody up anymore. And especially as you get older, you know, let's face it, I'm in my 60s now. I'm not gonna fight the mountain. I'm not gonna win that battle. I might have a shot at something, but I mean, or a professional football player. That, you know, what are you gonna hit him with? You think a sidekick's gonna stop Shaquan Barkley? He's getting used to getting hit by 300 guys running 4.5 40s. So now, will it help you in a situation where you got some bully, he's an untrained fighter, and he attacks you? Maybe, but you don't know, you know, and if you're putting yourself in this situation, you're actually defying the idea of self-defense. I don't want to ever have to use what I know. The day I really have to use what I know is a very dark day. I had one instance where my son was a baby. He was running a fever of 106, and I had to go to the store to get something. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm in the convenience, the 7-Eleven, and there's this guy harassing the lady behind the counter, yelling and screaming at her, and wanting to know where the local strip club was, and she didn't know, and he's yelling at her. I'm walking up with the things I needed to go take back to my son, and he looks at me, and I looked at him, and he looks at me, and he goes, "What are you going to do?" And in my mind, I had this image of me sidekicking him through the glass door and out into the street. And I was capable of doing it. And I looked at it, and I'm like, yeah, but that's not going to help my son, is it? And I looked at him, I said, no, nothing, actually. I said, I'm just here to buy some stuff. I said, you know, and it was amazing. He snapped, he stopped, he looked at the lady, and he apologized. And he left. That was the ultimate form of self-defense.
Like played a mind game on it.
Yeah. So here we
mind tricked him.
Yeah. So here we are. See, we can. If somebody jumps you, you got to do the best you can. And if you're trained and you're in the martial arts and you're hoping to be able to do that, more power to you. It may work, it may not. You don't know. It's a risk. So what has to happen? And I think the direction John wanted to say is, you know, the martial arts as we know it has evolved. It's already evolved. It's already changed. It's already not what it was at one time.
It's lost so much.
Is that a bad thing? Only if we let it go. Only if we let it die. And what I'm going to say to you now is the only way it dies is if we make its focus on self-defense alone. Alone. If the martial arts goal is to fight, it's going to die because we are not allowed to fight in the society anymore. Now, if you want to fight, there's places in the world you can go, but they're going to shoot you. You're not going to make it. You know?
Like the Boxer Rebellion, they thought they could fight. No.
Yeah, and they're not gonna let you get on the ground and pull guard, or they're not gonna let you get in your karate stance and start dancing around. There's 3 or 4 guys running up behind you are just gonna jump on you and throw you down on the ground and beat you to a pulp. It isn't gonna happen because those people, the people that are in places like that, they would rather they'll just kill you. So here's an anecdotal story, and I don't think I've even told John this. I was playing golf with a guy one time, and a friend of his came along. He was a small guy. I'm 5'9", let's say, you know, around 180, almost 180 pounds. I had a good build, muscular. I was working out at the time. I was pretty strong. This little guy is about 5'7", very thin, small guy. And my friend goes, "Hey, Biddle," you know, he knew I was in the martial arts. Says, "Can you take this guy? Do you think you can beat him up?" And I looked at him. I said, "I don't know. Why would I make that assumption? Why would I do that?" And he called the guy over and he said, "Biddle, would you fight this guy?" And I said, "No." I said, "I don't. Could you beat?" "No, I'm not going to fight. I wouldn't. I don't know. How would I know that? I'm not going to make an assumption that I could beat somebody up." And that's what I said. And he looked at me and he goes, "Tell him what you did for a living." And the guy looks at me and goes, I was a CIA assassin. I said, what? He goes, yeah, they used to drop me behind the lines and I killed people. And he described,
Okay.
I got goosebumps. He described some of this, what he used to do. This guy was a killer. So if I fought this guy, what is the difference between me and him? He's highly skilled. I was highly skilled. I was more physically able. He had something that I didn't. He wasn't afraid to kill. I have that limitation. I would not be capable of doing that. So like a Navy SEAL or a person that served in the Army that has killed, they have something that you do not. Their limiter doesn't exist.
Right.
They can kill. People on the street, people that live by crime, they have something you do not. They will kill. Your hesitation will kill you. And I found out later this guy, when 911 happened and the buildings collapsed, he was a small guy. He got permission. They dropped him from the helicopters on a wire into the buildings to look for people that were alive and try to extract them out. So he was being dropped down into the crevices and crawling around in the building, and they'd look and then they'd pull him back out and they move him. And he sent pictures back. Just a segue, but you don't know what people are capable of. So we train. We train in the martial arts. So here's what we have to do. Here's my appeal, and I think this is what John was trying to get to. Like the gym where we've developed and evolved out of farming and exercise, we've developed exercise, the ability to work out. That word workout meant nothing 50 years ago. That evolved in our lifetime. The martial arts has to do the same thing. It has to now be what the original idea of the martial artist was an art. It is an exercise. The benefit is self-defense, but it's also something more where it trains us, or trains our character, trains our mind, trains our body, so that we live happier, healthier lives as we get older. You're at your peak athletically at around 30 to 35 years old, and then it's downhill. So everything you do in that period of time that where you may injure yourself is going to affect the longest part of your life that's in front of you. And you don't want to be 65 years old and can't get out of a chair. You don't want to be like Lee Haney, who gave everything he had to his sport. He was the best there ever was, and he doesn't regret it. That's his credit. But he barely walks now. He sacrificed that. That's okay. That's okay if that's what you want to do. You want to be a professional football player, all those things. Those things are going to take its toll. It's going to be a consequence. But if it's not, and you have the ability to participate in a martial art, participate in something in a way that you can do it for the rest of your life, because you're going to live most of your life outside of your prime. I know. I've been there. I'm fortunate. I don't have any injuries or things. I do what I want to do. But that is attributed to the training and the development of the martial arts and the way that I approached it. And that's what got me here today. It's an evolution of style. We talk about evolution of styles. Evolution of the art is a real thing, and it should happen. It's okay.
You are with the University of Karate, and I think that this may be the most unique take or clickbait that you've seen with the topic of what's the best style for self-defense. Prayerfully, it's caused you to think in a way that maybe you didn't before. I'm sure in the comments there will be a lot of comments down there that are going to be colorful, and we welcome your colorful comments.
Okay. It's all good.
We welcome your congratulations, threats, everything. We want you to comment. Feel free to comment, ask questions, give suggestions for new videos, but also like and subscribe. Like this video and subscribe to this channel so that we can make more and better videos for those that are watching. You are with the University of Karate, and we hope to see you again very soon.